Hello and welcome to a calculus review. Right now we're just going to be starting on one of the fundamental aspects that you'll see throughout calculus that you really need to get down, and this involves the unit circle. So first off, we'll start with what the unit circle is. Essentially, it's just a circle around the origin of a graph with a radius of 1. So since the radius is 1, you can expect these points right here to be 1, 0 since it's an x, and then over here is the y-axis, so you're going to get 0, 1. And then there's also angles, specified angles between each quadrantal angle. So in radians, it's going to be pi over 6, pi over 4, and pi over 3. So if you convert that to degrees, for some of the people who don't know radians yet, it means the first angle is going to be 30 degrees. And then the second angle is going to be 45 degrees. And the second angle, or the third angle, is going to be 60 degrees. So that's where you get those. But just knowing the angles isn't enough, because there's points for each angle. And right now we'll only be going over the points in the first quadrant, because the numbers, they really just sort of translate over to the other quadrants too. They're just different signs. So in order to find the points, all you have to do is you have to recognize that each one of these can be made into a right triangle. And then once you recognize that, you just throw in some trigonometry. So say for the 30-degree angle, so we have our triangle, 30 degrees, 90, so this is 60. And since the radius is 1, we know what the hypotenuse is. And then we have the angle. So we have our y, and we have our x. Well, in order to find the y, you'll look at it and you'll say, oh, okay, it's opposite over hypotenuse, so it'll be sine of 30 equals y over 1. And that comes out to 1/2. So there's our y point, or y coordinate. And then for the x, it's the same process, except you're going to say, oh, it's adjacent over hypotenuse, so we'll use cosine. And that comes out to the square root of 3 over 2. So once you do that, you have your point for that angle now, which is going to be square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. Now for the next point is 45 degrees. With the 45-degree angle, the only other option for the third angle is also 45 degrees. So we recognize that it's a 45, 45, 90. And basically what the rule states for this is that the x and the y's are pretty much going to be the same, because the hypotenuse is just square root of 2 to the x. So in order to find what the x is, you're going to take x divided by square root of 2. In this case, x is 1 because the hypotenuse is 1. So you get 1 square root of 2. Once you rationalize that, you get rid of the square root on the denominator. It becomes square root of 2 over 2. And as I said before, both of them are going to be the same thing, so that's going to be your point, is square root of 2 with square root of 2. Like that. Now we just have one more point to truly understand how to find. And you can go about and memorize each point. I find it helpful if you actually know how to get to it, in case your mind blanks when you're on a test or any other circumstance. So for pi over 3, it's going to be the same idea that we did for the pi over 6. Essentially, this triangle is just going to be flipped on a different side. So you have y, x, and then 1 again. So basically with this, you have the same process, so it's going to be sine of 60 or pi over 3, whatever you are in right now for your calculator mode, equals y over 1. That comes out to the square root of 3 over 2. Same thing with cosine, except it comes out to 1/2. And there you go, you have all 3 points within the quadrantal angles. Alright, so now that we know how to do that, as I was saying before, once you know these, you can pretty much do any of the other quadrants. So what you have to recognize is that not all trigonometric functions are going to be positive. And really you can do this just by looking at what is in the y and x. We all know that the x on the left half is going to be negative. We all know the y on the bottom portion is going to be negative. So in this case, you can figure it out that way, or you can also remember that all strippers take cash. So what that does is everything's going to be positive in the first quadrant, hence A. Now in the second quadrant, only the sign's going to be positive. And the way you relate sine to this is that every point is going to be cosine sine. So that means that x is always related to cosine, and then the y is always related to sine. And this is for the unit circle. So knowing that, all your x values will be negative, but the signs will stay the same, or the y's will stay the same. So for example, if you were to look at this one's going to be 5 pi over 6. So all that does or means is that instead of positive square root of 3 over 2, you're going to get negative square root of 3 over 2. But the 1/2 is still going to be positive. And then for the third one, both of them are going to be negative because the tangent has to be positive. And the only way you can only get tangent to be the positive is to have both of them be negative, to have the cosine and sine negative. Because essentially tangent is sine over cosine. And then for the fourth quadrant, only your x is going to be positive, so only the cosine everything else is going to be negative. So one vocabulary term you're probably going to hear when using the unit circle is the term coterminal angle. And all that means is that it's a different angle, but it has the same coordinate, same points. So, say you had pi over 6 as one angle, and then you had 13 pi over 6 as the next. So that would be an entire revolution around the unit circle. So it's a different angle, but you're still going to have the same coordinate. It's still going to be square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. So that's all that means. So the way these problems will be presented usually for the beginning stance is it's going to be something like sine of 5 pi over 6 equals what? So what the 5 pi over 6 is, that's called the reference angle. That just basically lets you know what you're working with. So sine of 5 pi over 6. Alright. So you know that 5 pi over 6 is going to be in the second quadrant because pi is 180 degrees. So 5 pi over 6 is probably going to be right here. Well, it is going to be right there. So knowing the coordinate is negative square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, you have two options to choose from for the answer. Here, let me make that to where you can see it better. So the coordinate is negative square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2. So you have two options to choose from. But recognizing that it's sine shows that it's going to be related with the y. So you can just not even look at the x, and then there's your answer, 1/2. And that's all there is to it for the basic ones. And then another example problem will be tangent of 3 pi over 2. So looking at where 3 pi over 2 is, that's going to be the 270 degree angle. That's where 3 pi over 2 is. So the coordinate for that is going to be 0, negative 1, because it's going down. So all tangent's going to be is sine over cosine. So that's going to equal negative 1 over 0. But that doesn't work, so it's going to be undefined because you can't have anything over 0. So that's when some of the problems can get more trickier, is once they start introducing tangents, cosecants, secants, and cotangents. But other than that, the unit circles problems stay pretty basic. However, it really just helps to familiarize yourself with understanding all the angles, the coordinates, which is what, how to relate them to what x or what y. So yeah, this is just a basic fundamental that's always helpful to master when you're progressing through calculus. Thank you for watching.